Hi, I'm Don with Hitman Home Services. I know you want to get back to your DIY project, so today I'm going to show you how to skim coat a wall and then texture it to match the existing surface. Let's get to it. So here's the tools you're going to need. You're going to need some sandable patching compound. I like to use this Easy Sand 5. It's real fast. You're going to need a pan and some mesh tape, some sanding sponges, a sanding block, some drywall taping knives, and some quick spray texture. So here we are. In this instance, we are taking off this pine wainscoting, and here's a sample of where I removed it there. And as you can see, there is quite a few nicks on the wall. Some of the paper was removed, and there's little digs here and there. So that's why we need to skim coat this, and then we're going to match this existing texture that's on here. Okay, so now the first thing we need to do is you take it off any loose paper, and then we need to prime this stuff that where the actual paper came off the face of the drywall. We need to prime this, so we're going to do that first. And then just a little safety tip. So I remove this cover plate, and I need to keep this cover plate off for a little while here while the work is being done. I don't want to put it back on when we have wet texture, etc. So the screws were exposed, so you want to get some electrical tape. Here's some electrical tape, and you wrap it around the screws. Okay, so I already did this, but you want to do that as a safety precaution. You shove this thing back in the box, put your screws back in, and put your safety covers back on. That way, if anybody sticks their fingers in here, they can't get shot. Okay, so now we got all the loose material removed, and we want to take our sanding block here. We can use a sanding sponge. I like to use a block that's flat. This block here is nice and flat. Just take and knock any high spots down. Just sanding this surface down. Anything high up there. You're not grinding on it for hours. You're just knocking this down. Okay? The next step is to prime. We need to prime this bare stuff. So we're going to do that. Okay, so now we're ready for some primer. And typically I would use a little bucket or pan or something. I'm just going to paint out of the bucket because we've got so little to do. But you generally would want to use a pan or a bucket and not paint directly out of the primer can. But we're just hitting this paper to solidify this, and then I'm just going to go ahead and give the whole area a quick coat. And what this will do is it'll help the surface. If you have one of these, this is a heat gun. You can use this. You can also use a blow dryer if you want to speed up the drying process. We're going to do that right now. To speed up this drying process and come back in a little bit here. Mesh tape. Again, there's a whole bunch of different flavors of this. This they actually call out for cement board tape. It works for any drywall surface. I like it because it's nice and flat. But basically, to find where you're at here on the roll, there's the tape there. I like to just put it on the wall. It's self-adhesive, and then you can just trim it with a razor knife. There. So you just want to trim it here with a razor knife. Okay. And we just want the tape in that void, not on the actual drywall surface. So I'll put this on, and then it's kind of a little close up here of the tape that we put on. It's a self-adhesive, and we're going to mud that in, and there's a couple of little pieces down there at the bottom. Okay. Okay, so here we got some mud in the pan. This is probably going to be plenty of mud. We go over here and get a little bit of water. So this is enough to do everything we need here for the first coat. So I'm going to get a little bit of water and we'll mix up this mud. Anyway, that's about the consistency you want it. Now you got to go like roll holy, because you only got 5 minutes. You know? They're pretty serious about the 5 minutes. Here's the technique. So basically you grab some mud out of your pan like that, get it on your knife good, get on to where you want to put this mud, and pull it up. And just to give you a little close-up here of our work, like I said, it looks way better just after this first coat, but you can see these little ridges there. Don't worry about those. Those will sand down super easy. And it'll take some practice if you've never laid mud on before. But it is certainly something you can do if you have some patience as a DIYer. Alright, so we dried it with the heat gun. It took about 15 minutes or so. Mixed up a little bit more mud. Now we're going to hit it with our final coat. So you want to take this and just kind of cut those ridges down. Take your knife and just knock those ridges down like that. Any high spots, you just take them right down. You could sand now, but it's better, in my opinion, to wait until you get this second coat on. So we got base coming up to here, so you don't need to worry so much about that bottom part. I'm just going to go ahead and hit it all. And once again, we put as little mud on as possible, and then pull it up cleanly. And you gotta work fast because you only got 5 minutes with this stuff. Okay, so we're back here on the skim coating project, and we've got this now mudded in, and here I haven't sanded it yet, so you can kind of see how it looks. There's a few little ridges here and there and stuff, but we're going to now. Basically, I like this one that's got the edge on it here. You can kind of get into corners and stuff. Basically, we just going to sand this down, get it ready for the texturing. So that's probably most of the sanding we're going to need to do. One little trick you can use is just you can use your phone for this, but basically if you could use a flashlight or a trouble light, but if you shine it at an angle on the work, you can see the little flaws, so that can tell you might need to sand a little bit more here or there, but light will really bring out the flaws if you couldn't see. Okay, so we got some touch up done, just a couple little spots here you can see. Now we're going to use our heat gun here to dry this. So you'll see it turn white pretty fast, and that's when you know it's dry. Crank up the heat a little. Okay, so now we're masked off. You definitely want to protect adjacent surfaces. The thing though is this is water-based texture, and it will wipe off with a sponge. So anyway, this texture I've had a lot of good luck with here. I like this product here. There are different brands, etc. But this one was set up really well for orange peel, and that's kind of what we're doing today. So anyway, basically you want to mask off adjacent surfaces, make sure you're sanded and smooth, and then you can just spray this on. Now, it's always good to do a little test spot, so I put this paper on the door there, and that's you know, you kind of know what you're getting into there. That's exactly what we want, and I'll get a little close up of this. So down here at the bottom, we've got base coming up 6 inches, not as important down there, so that's where I'm going to start. And basically you just pull back here about 2 feet or so from the surface, and you just spray it on. You'll see there'll be little clumps or whatever. That will sort itself out. You want to blend up into the existing. So that's kind of the first kind of coat. We're going to let that kind of set up there a little bit, and then hit it again. And we're already getting a nice blend. And these little bigger pieces, they can come off the next day with a little sponge sander. I'll get you a little closer to that so you can kind of see what we did. But you will see some little bigger pieces here. Those will all come off. But you can kind of see how well we're blending now with the existing. Some of these larger pieces too will shrink, so you just don't need to worry about them. What you don't want to do is start trying to stick your hand or trying to make this stuff go away when it's wet. You just want. Okay, so we're back here and the texture has dried. I'm going to take you in here a little closer and just show you now how we've blended it in. I haven't even touched it with a sander. There's a couple of little spots I see I'd like to get off of here. Here's one right here. We'll just touch that with a sander. But all in all, it looks really good. So now we're going to take a sander and just touch this couple little spots here. And we do that right here. So you just barely, same sander, you just barely just barely touching it there. Kind of just make it just smooth it over a little bit. You don't want to grind on this or you're going to flatten out the. Okay, so here we are. We got it all painted out, and I've pulled paper, cleaned it up, and you can see here, we're going to get in here a little closer, so you really can't tell at all what that wall looked like before we started, and that was our goal. The sun's kind of flashing it out here, but anyway, all in all, pretty happy with it. Looks like you can't really even tell that there was pine on that wall or that there was any imperfections on there. So that's what it looks like. That's what it should look like when you're done.